Hello, I was invited to talk about supporting people respectfully with their medicine. I like to keep you all on your toes, so I'm going to begin by talking about my childhood. When I was little, my friends and I would imagine what our lives would be like as grown ups. Of course, we were a little unrealistic in our imaginings of adult life. We believed we'd all be pop stars, despite none of us being able to sing, and have mansions made up entirely of soft play equipment. We didn't agree on that plan forever. Our dreams changed as we grew. They began to drift from being collective, always following each other's opinions, to becoming individual, reflecting our own emerging personalities. One of my friends wanted a huge garage filled with the best racing cars. Another wanted a well stocked bar. As for me, I wanted my very own Tweenies clock. A slightly modified, autism friendly version, because the uncertainty that comes with the words Tweenies clock, where will it stop, evokes serious anxiety. I need to know exactly where it will stop before I press the button. Our core dream didn't have a dividing line between those with support needs and those without. Why should it? We all need support in one way or another in life. I remember we all wanted adulthood to mean more control, our opinions being respected, and freedom to make choices. I recall playing the Sega Master System and then the Mega Drive and later the Dreamcast. And for all those years and progression of computer graphics, the one thing all those games had in common was whenever I was at the most important stage of a level, my mum would without fail decide it was a matter of absolute necessity to dust the TV screen at that moment. Don't give me that look, Sebastian, she would say. It's my housework day. When you move into your own place, you can decide when to dust your TV. Why don't you go out and play if you're going to be grumpy? You don't let me go out alone, Mum. Well, that's because your autism makes you incapable of crossing the road. Do you think I work all the hours that God made just so I can waste all my wages paying for your funeral when you get hit by a bus? Did you know, Mum, that some people say autism may be genetic? Now, don't you dare try and blame me and your father for this. Anyway, I moved out and I got to choose for myself when to dust my TV. I thought I was finally going to have the chance to complete a computer game. Guess what happened? One of your lot, a support worker, stepped in front of my TV and got me a game over because they insisted they couldn't possibly wait a few more seconds to give me my medication. And that is when the gap in freedoms becomes more apparent depending on the level or type of support someone needs in life. So please instill in staff the importance of waiting and not rushing people, accepting when people say no and returning later. It might not seem like a big deal, but the little breaches of freedoms add up. And especially if we don't have the same level of control as others, then those small things feel even more important to us. Try to keep person-centered care always in mind, making sure that medication times are tailored to the individual rather than having specific medication around times that everyone's expected to fall in with. Those of us with a higher support need often have to fight harder for freedoms because our care necessitates the need for restrictions. However, in this instance, I think perhaps people with lower support needs often have it harder. I need doors and cupboards that have locks, a camera in my bedroom, and waking night staff. But waking night staff means I can have my medication whenever I want. Places that only require sleeping staff or are unstaffed overnight, or even unstaffed through some of the daytime, are going to be maybe more reluctant to accommodate medication time preferences. So try to remember all of those people when you're thinking about making changes for better support. Let me tell you who the most likely people are to be the victims of physical or sexual abuse in a care setting. I would say it's the people who don't get to choose when they have their medication. If someone refuses to comply with the rules, it often gets called testing boundaries and is considered challenging behaviour. I'd call it testing my safety. If staff don't protect my right to say no, When it comes to something smaller, then I'll learn that I'll get in trouble if I say no, or I tell. I won't put up a fight if someone starts abusing me in a larger way. Why else might people refuse their medication? Do they know what it's for? Don't assume that someone knows or has remembered over a length of time what it's actually supposed to be helping with. Continued education is key. You can even have informal chats. You may see someone on TV experiencing pain in their legs, and that's a good time to comment to the person you're supporting. Your legs used to hurt a lot like that, didn't they? Now you take your yellow tablet. Do you remember what it's called? Do you remember the tablets you had first that helped your pain but made you too tired to go out with your friends? Side effects. That can be a big issue when it comes with medication. Support people to speak to the doctor and look at alternative medications. We may refuse trying a new medication if in the past we've had a bad experience. I had a really bad reaction to a new medication I was put on in a psychiatric hospital. The muscles in my face were affected to the extent my face fell on one side. I couldn't speak properly. I looked like I'd had a stroke, and it was agony. I was left suffering for hours because the nursing staff decided it was most likely anxiety. My condition got progressively worse as it took over the rest of my body. And I like to say that was when I got help. It wasn't. I managed to pull myself up. Using only one side of my body, I pulled myself over to the payphone and I called my mum. She freaked out when she heard my voice and called the ward and complained. Only then did the nurse phone the on-call doctor. He came in, took one look at me, and hurriedly administered the antidote for his severe reaction. And it worked. He said, although it doesn't happen too often, it was a classic presentation that all the staff had been trained to look out for as an allergic reaction. The only reason the nurses didn't consider it in my case was because I have autism and I do happen to experience some abnormal body movements as a part of that. Bear in mind, especially if you are supporting people who have been held long-term on locked wards, that there can be a lot of trauma associated with that. Receiving PRN medicines in hospital meant for me that I'd receive it in my bedroom and wake up hours later having been carried to a locked seclusion room where I'd be left alone for a week. I still need reassurance from staff if I'm given extra tablets. Now I'm going to wake up in the same place. We touched on education earlier. Check that what you're teaching hasn't been misinterpreted. I get involved in a lot of projects, and for a while now, everywhere I go, I hear about Stomp. I got myself in quite a state about it. And in fact, it wasn't only me who got worked up. The idea, of course, is good. Stop over-medicating people with learning disabilities and autism. Over-medicating, that's the important part. But people have a way of abbreviating things, like using the term people we support instead of service users was a good idea, except when staff got lazy and started abbreviating to PWS, and it sounded less respectful. So in a similar way, stop over-medicating turned for some people into simply stop medicating. Then there was a lot of judgment on people receiving medication. That made me feel very guilty for needing it. We're being told as long as we have good support, no one should need tablets to help with their behaviour at all. It made me resistant for a while to the things that keep you doing well, because I didn't want to let the side down and just feeling like the most useless person, that the behaviours that come with my autism were that extreme that they need managing with antipsychotics and sedatives. Absolutely, they should not be used inappropriately, but just be mindful of people's self-esteem. It's great to celebrate someone who successfully had their medicine reduced because they've learned the skills to cope better, or it was being used inappropriately and better support was always needed. But also celebrate the achievements of someone realizing for themselves when they need PRN and managing to reach out and ask for it before they reach crisis. Medication can impact wider parts of our lives that we wouldn't perhaps immediately think of. When a long time ago I had a medication prescribed that needed to be administered rectally, it wasn't just my dignity that was compromised. My independence was lessened because none of my friends were confident to spend time with me without a member of staff present. When I was supported to have my medication changed to oral administration, suddenly everything changed. My friends were all happy to be responsible for me, and they would collect me and take me out, take my medicine with them without requiring staff to accompany us. I was fortunate that the staff helped me to speak up because initially the doctor wanted me to stay with the cheaper option. And the doctor had the attitude that my staff were trained and available, so there was no need to switch me to the more expensive option. My staff stood up for me and told the doctor just because they were available to come out with me didn't mean I should have to take them if I would prefer to be with a friend all by myself. And that friend was only unable to support me because of the doctor being reluctant to give me a medicine that was easier to use. Sometimes phone calls to doctors are never made. You may have a member of support staff taking exactly the same medication as a person being supported. The member of staff phones their doctor and asks if they can safely drink alcohol with their medicine, and are told they can. But no one makes that same phone call and asks the question for the person being supported. The manager decides to just make the rule themselves that no alcohol should be consumed by people they support who take my medication. We love making things more complicated than necessary when people have support needs. Timing trips out to work around medication times for no logical reason. Ask why someone has to be home by 6 p.m. You get told it's because they have to have their tablet at that time. Anybody else who takes tablets that really needs to be given at a specific time we're doing a simple thing and just take their tablets out with them. If you get told there isn't a procedure for that to be possible, ask why not, because often you find the answer isn't logical. You get told medication can't be given outside in a home, but ask the staff if they allow the people living there to go away and stay with their families for visits. I bet they say yes. And if you ask them if the staff drive, say, 2 hours to that person's parents' house each morning to collect them and drive back to the care home to administer medication, then drop them back with their family straight after, and repeat that in the evening and every single day in a visit, of course they don't. They send the medication on the home visit with the person. The same as if the staff take people away on holiday, like Achieve Together, take people on holidays, and they pack medication, take it with them. So if there's a procedure in place for that, a procedure can logically be put in place for popping out for a day trip. It's good to assess people's knowledge, keep evidence of what they know, identify risks, and from that agree what more needs to be learned. There's a managing medicines assessment form that can be looked at with people. My favourite part in the risk section on the form is where it asks if you're likely to give away or sell your medications. I already told Michael Fullerton that I'll definitely find something inappropriate to say during my talk, so here it is. I'll be putting a tick in that box and saying yes to selling medications until such times as the personal expenses allowance for care home residents is raised above £28.25 per week. It's not a lot of money to live on. Also, because I have a big heart, I'd share and tick yes to giving my medications away. I'd gladly give them away to UK support workers to sell until such times that they start getting paid fairly for the work they do. In Campaign for Change, we're working on a video campaigning for better pay for support workers, so make sure you keep an eye on our channels for when that comes out. Moving on, 100% independence doesn't have to be the goal when carrying out assessments. Don't leave people out of the process if they have different aims. Also, someone might be able to self-medicate even if they haven't ticked all of the boxes. For instance, if someone suffers extreme anxiety and it's preventing them from going to the chemist to collect their medication, that doesn't mean they're not sensible enough to self-medicate once you've collected that prescription for them, or you could show them how to get their tablets delivered. Some homes may get all of the people's medicines delivered through a service such as AutoMeds. Make sure you give people the opportunity to collect their own from a pharmacy of their choice if they want to. Even if they need a member of staff to go with them, be careful we're not coercing people into having it delivered because it saves you time. Try to accommodate people's choices as to where they want their medication stored, addressing legitimate concerns versus rules that are there for the sake of rules. For example, could someone keeping medicine in their own room put another individual at risk? Or are we saying we keep medicine centrally just because it's how it's always been done in this particular home? Even bad things that happen can turn out to be good. Another home kindly let me share this story. Someone living there managed to take the keys and went upstairs ahead of their staff. And they opened their cabinet in their room and they put their vitamin in a medication pot and then sat on their bed and they waited for the staff. They were really proud of themselves. And the staff had to count everything in the cupboard and had to raise it as a safeguarding issue because the keys shouldn't have been accessible. But what it showed them was this person actually wanted to be more independent and was already demonstrating a level of maturity. They didn't know exactly what to take and were not yet capable to be unsupervised, but they've realised this person should be unlocking the cupboard themselves, putting their own pills in their pot, with a member of staff present for safety and prompting, and they can both sign the mark sheet. Mr. Caterpillar requested to reincarnate into his new body today among his friends. We've got so many good memories together. His looks have changed over the years and his many reincarnations. He has no intention of ever turning into a butterfly. He wants to remind you all of the importance of respecting that people don't need to change themselves in order to be beautiful. There are so many things I couldn't do without him, and I'm so grateful of Mr. Caterpillar. And I don't even notice that he couldn't get to any of those places to help me if I didn't carry him. It doesn't make me any less because I need his moral support, or him any less for needing my physical support. As I said at the beginning of this presentation, we all need support in one way or another. You'll be doing a good job as long as you're listening to the person you support and doing what feels right for them, not a tick box of the correct type of progression. Stick up for them, even if it means standing up to other services, and always work as a team. Mr. Caterpillar has always had this little butterfly attached to him as a little reminder that we all often feel forced to progress in a way that fits into other people's ideals as opposed to what is comfortable for us. But when he reincarnates into his new body, he can, for the first time, truly unshackle himself from the societal expectations of conformity. Thank you for having us.